Then there came an echoing blast. A great horn was blown in the hall, and answering horns, and harsh cries were heard further off. There was a hurrying sound of many feet. Fyrt ned, cardboard of the rings!
All right, here we go. Episode 131 of Cardboard of the Rings, a podcast about Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. I am one of your hosts. I am Chad. It's April 4th, 2018. I am having a great night tonight. I'm remembering everything. My memory is spot on. I'm like really sharp. I have not made any silly mistakes pre-show that the guys are going to try to trip me up with later. I guarantee it. Speaking of the guys, who's with me tonight? Well, it's the empty mug to my leaping fish. Chris, how are you?
You calling me an empty mug?
When I thought of the two names, I'm like, and Chris is the empty mug, and I am the leaping fish. Hi, Chris.
I'm doing great, actually. I've been on a streak where I've been playing a lot of Lord of the Rings, the card game,
Yes.
and it's been great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is great. And you're fighting a little cold, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Is the flu as bad like in California as it is in the areas where it gets cold and warm, like the northeast of the United States, where you get like the big weather shifts?
I'm pretty sure it's not as bad here.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff.
Because I just know like here in Michigan, it'll be like 60 degrees, and it'll drop back down to 20, and then everybody gets sick because I think your immune system's like, hooray, we can relax a little. And then no, you can't. Anyway, my kids have been sick nonstop. John, how are you? John's with us tonight.
I am awesome, guys. I mean, it is baseball season finally, and the Braves aren't complete garbage so far, and my fantasy team's doing all right. So I am in a fantastic mood tonight. I've also been getting to play more of Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. So yeah, it's just, man, I'm excited.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot too. It's been nice. It's been real nice. Did you guys have a good Easters?
Oh yeah.
I had so my daughter was really sick, like 103 temperature, so we kind of had to miss a couple Easters. But we still had the one with my wife's family, and I had one of the things happen where you find out something about your wife's family even though you've been married for a while. I don't know if that's happened to you guys, where you're like, oh, wow, I've been a part of this family for 11 years, and I never knew this little tidbit of information. So normally when we go to event or to like meetups at holidays or whatever, either my wife or I say the blessing before we eat. I've never thought much about it. They just say, Emily, will you say the blessing? Chad, will you say the blessing? And I just do it. Well, this time we couldn't. My daughter was screaming, just going nuts. So my wife was rocking her in a rocking chair. I had just spent a half hour in the car with the screaming child. I just needed like 5 minutes just to get my thoughts back in order because my head was spinning.
Mm-hmm.
So Emily's mom comes in and she says, well, one of you guys come in the room and say the blessing. And I'm like, oh, God. And Emily's like, Mom, I got the baby. Chad, will you? I'm like, Janet, I just need a few minutes here. I don't have it in me right now. So Emily says, Mom, you're going to have to do it. Well, I can't. Then I thought about that. I'm like, that's weird. Janet's like the most religious person I know. That's really weird. And Emily's like, well, why not? Because everybody will laugh at me. Mom, no one's going to laugh at you. Last time they did, Mom, that was 15 years ago. Well, I don't care. They all laughed at me. Mom, you ended the blessing with, okay, see ya, bye. Because I guess she got like kind of intimidated by praying in front of everybody. Okay, Jesus, see ya, bye. I don't know. So of course I laughed. And she goes, see, he's laughing. I'm like, it's hilarious.
It's great.
I want to end all like prayers that way now. So anyway, that was pretty
in podcasts.
In podcasts.
Yeah, I should. That should be our outro from now on. Okay, see ya, bye. So good times. But hey, on another note, I'm lucky to be here tonight. But before I talk about that, Caleb couldn't be here because we currently have a big warm spell cutting through this area of the country, and he is suffering from heat exhaustion. That's a lie. It's freaking freezing. we had this huge storm come through, and this morning on my way to work, I am not joking. I very, very well could have gotten killed or definitely majorly hurt. A car heading in the opposite direction on a 2-lane road completely started fishtailing, crossing the yellow line completely from ditch to ditch, 12-foot ditches on both sides of the road. And the only reason we didn't hit is because he spun in front of me, spun back into his lane so that his headlights like shined through my window, like alongside of me. And then he spun out around me and went into the ditch on the opposite side of the road. So I caught like this just amazingly like small window, probably 10 feet on either side, and who knows what would have happened. So
it's a good thing you got that spare pair of pants in the desk at the office.
God, yeah. And I was on my way to get there early to go to a stupid meeting I didn't want to go to. And yeah, it was, it woke me up. Let me tell you that. And what's weird is I didn't even like freak out because I just saw it happening. I knew there's nothing I could do. I wasn't going to slam on my brakes because I know how to drive on snow. And I just said,
yeah, physics.
I just said, well, and I just waited to see what was going to happen. And I was like, okay, that was a close one.
Well, I'm glad you're not dead.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I knew you were fishing for that.
Yes. Thanks, John. And Chris, I hope you're thinking it at least.
Well, you're welcome to move out here. We don't have that.
That's true. No flu and no bad winter drivers. Okay. Okay, the intro. John, you said you know what it is. What is it?
It is whatever you're going to say it is, because I don't have a blessed clue.
Really? I have a thought. I think it's Helm's Deep, right? Did he talk about a horn echoing in a chamber?
I don't think so. Plus, we did that one not too long ago.
But I think, well, I think the one that was before was the other side of the King rides out. This seems like the side A of like Quest Card 5 of Helm's Deep.
I only know the B-sides.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, well, I always beat Helm's Deep on the first stage, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, jeez.
Hashtag Danigans.
Well, my other thought was a Pelennor Field thing. That's the only other place I can imagine a horn being blown. But my official guess is Helm's Deep.
I was thinking Helm's Deep or Pelennor, but I don't think Pelennor really worked with the Hall.
Yeah, not with the Hall.
So.
And also metagaming, we've already done Charge of the Rohirrim.
Sure.
Yeah,
what is it, Aaron?
Right.
Aaron's typing in. We're gonna see who it was. No, oh, he's making jokes. So he's like, "Oh crap!" Actually, a journey in the a journey in the dark, drums in the deep. That actually makes a ton of sense.
The head fake with the horns.
I liked it. That was a great one. That was read by Morten Dahl, whose online name is Morten Dahl. He is from Copenhagen, Denmark. He says, my only contributions are the occasional comment in the Facebook group and building decks with elaborate piloting instructions that nobody reads on RingsDB. Morton, I'm going to tell you right now that commenting on a Facebook group is a huge contribution because it keeps the community alive. And piloting instructions on RingsDB are worth their weight in gold. I love them.
But they don't weigh anything because they're... Never mind. Yeah, no, you're totally right.
Metaphorical weight in gold.
But they absolutely are.
Each word is worth a gram of gold. I mean, don't you guys think? If I pull up a deck and there's no description on how to run the thing, I'm like, well, I'll just move on to the next one.
No, I'm with you. Piloting instructions are crucial.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't write anything, your deck's not going to get played. That's pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, it's kind of like an effort thing, right? Well, I mean, like if they don't put the effort into writing a description for the deck, I'm thinking, well, how good could this thing be that you don't even want to talk about it a little bit?
Right.
Well, yeah. And I mean, a lot of decks are meant to do some sort of certain thing with the way the cards interact. If you don't really know what that is going in, you might end up playing the deck the way it's not supposed to be played and have a terrible experience with it.
Yeah, like
So
which
I mean,
character does this attachment go on? You know, you're like,
Yep.
I'm assuming this character, but
yeah, or for all you know, they made it as one deck in a fellowship, and half the attachments don't even go on the characters that are in there.
How does this deck
Wow.
defend? Oh, because there's another deck that does it for you.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So thank you, Morton. Your other contribution, of course, is contributing to the Patreon, which we cannot thank you enough for.
Yeah, and thank you to all of our generous patrons. If you are interested in supporting COTR, please visit patreon.com/cardboardoftherings. Now, we are past the deadline to hop on the Gen Con swag train, but you can check out the other reward tiers and see how you can record the intro to the show, suggest a topic, or even have the one and only C-Stand build you a deck to do whatever C-Standigans you want it to do. All monies collected go right back into the show and the community. And on this episode, we'd like to send out a huge thank you to Phil L. and Paul J. So thanks so much to you guys and to all of our awesome patrons.
Thank you, Phil and Paul. All right, let's talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the news for a long time. Yes, of course. It happened within minutes of our last recording. So we're going to talk about news, and then one of the news items is the rules reference. And we're going to be talking about that in depth, doing a big rules deep dive. I'm very excited for it. So, hey, Chris.
Yes.
Let's get to the news.
He got it right. He got it right.
Did you like pause for a long time, hoping I'd forget it?
Well, actually, it was kind of me who forgot what my response was supposed to be there.
I think it's supposed to be reading the news.
Yes. All right. What happened in the news,
Yes.
buddy?
Okay, so actually a few things. The most notable one, I think, is that we can actually have more stuff we can buy.
Yay!
What?
Yeah. So
Yes,
there's new playmats. Unfortunately, no new cards.
To put on the playmat.
Put on the playmats, yeah.
They just the cards get in the way of the playmat art.
But no, they look really cool. I've
Mm.
already ordered one of them. You can get them direct off Fantasy Flight's website, I think, but I
Yep.
just went to my local game store and told them to order one for me. Yeah,
Which
so
one
there's
did you get?
I got the big one.
Really?
The 26-inch by 26-inch. It says it's a 1 to 4 player playmat, but I intend to just use it for solo play
Mm-hmm.
because it has a nice little staging area with these like these bordered regions for your quest and your discard pile and your active location and your encounter deck. So, and then the rest of the area is a big map of Middle Earth where you can put your cards.
What do you think about the active location slot being to the right of the quest deck?
That is weird.
Yeah.
That because I normally put that. I basically set up my table to emulate the way Octagon sets it up. So
Right.
you have your quest in the far right, and then your encounter deck to the left of that, and then your active location next to that.
Because it's like reading a book to me. Like, oh, the active location's in front of the quest, and the
Mhm.
encounter cards are in front of the active location, and so
Yeah,
your
but
progress goes on the active location before the quest.
I mean, I've actually played it on someone else's playmat. They brought it to our meetup, and it wasn't actually that weird to play it with the active location over there. I do wonder though, like how that was decided. If they
Right.
had a little vote on the order to put these boxes, or if it was just like one person deciding, this is the way I do it. I'm gonna put that in.
I think we're hitting on something there with like I'm not going to get the big one because I've got this other playmat that I use, but part of the reason I like the one that I use is that it doesn't have every possible deck location outlined. It's sort of just like here's where the staging area is, just some lines to denote where the staging area is, and then some lines to denote where like quest deck and other stuff can go, but there's not like a little individual box for every single card position. And I think that's something that a lot of that just adds visual noise, and it also adds problems when you have like multiple locations, or in the case of something like Poros, you've got all these other encounter decks coming in, and you need a place to put them. And anyway, but I think it's awesome that they're doing these playmats, and I think it's also awesome that they're using some art from some of the fellowship mats on better than half of them.
Yeah. So what other mats are there, Chris?
So there's the On the Doorstep playmat. Like, it's a picture of Smaug and the hobbits, the Hobbit, Bilbo and the dwarves on the side of the Lonely Mountain there. They also have the Flame of the West playmat, and I believe this was from a fellowship event 2 years ago, was it?
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah. Yep.
The other ones, I don't remember what the other ones were, and I'm having a hard time
That's all right.
It was
finding the
Gandalf.
page.
Yeah, Gandalf and Bilbo and the dwarves leaving the Shire, and
that's the art from An Unexpected Party from The Hobbit, Over Hill and Under Hill. That's my favorite. I love that one. Just something
I like
about
On the Doorstep one.
I like
was
that
my
one
favorite.
too. You know what I like? You know why I like the one where they're leaving the Shire. I always like the parts of books and movies where it's an adventure tale and everyone's just getting ready to go, so it's leading up to the adventure. So you know, if the author did a good job, you should be pretty excited at this point for what's about to happen, and you should understand all the fears and troubles and dangers that they're going into, but also the like point of it and what's going to happen if they succeed. And this mat, I think, just does a really good job of reminding me of that from The Hobbit, but it's also in The Lord of the Rings. It kind of does the same thing. There's the same setup of the big journey getting started. And it's always an exciting time in a book or a movie when you know it's going to be a big adventure. And right now they don't know what's ahead of them. And I like the colors. It's just a bright, colorful playmat. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's really. I think it's great that, because the one that we haven't mentioned yet is the one from Black Riders. That was I think the 2014 Fellowship event, Matt?
Yeah,
I think so.
Sure.
Something like that. So I think it's great that, like I said, 3 of these are basically the art. They're different in layout a little bit. They're recropped, or they're sort of full frame, if you will, without the Fellowship chrome and stuff around it. But yeah, I really think it's great that they're putting these out there, because I mean, we've been clamoring for playmats outside of the Fellowship events for a long time, and then arguably, I think these 3 pieces of art are the 3 most popular from previous Fellowship events. And then we've got 2 that are brand new. So for those of us that already have our Fellowship mats and maybe don't want to buy duplicates, basically, I'm very interested in the On the Doorstep one. That one I'm definitely going to order, because I love that piece of art. That just looks so cool.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah, I'm just happy they went with a bigger size, because those standard size ones do not give me enough room.
Now they're not. The other ones are 12 by 4 or 24 by 14, right? They're not 26 by 26, or are they? Are they all that big?
No, there's only one that's the 26 by 26.
Right.
I was happy to see that. Literally the next day after we recorded, this came out the next day. This news article. What else came out, Chris?
Guess what we're going to get an article about tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to say one more on that point. From the initial reaction that I saw, these things are incredibly popular. So I hope it means that they have seen that we're desperate for anything to spend our money on in terms of this game, and then start pumping out more stuff.
I agree. They did give us some more stuff.
Yeah. So next news item, we have, I guess, a core set. What are we calling it? 1.5.
Yeah, it's not 2.0.
No, it's not. It's the same.
Oh, how about 0.5
cards?
How
it's the
about
same cards.
Core set 0.5.
Yeah, I mean, essentially that describes it well, because we have miniature threat trackers. So it's actually a little bit smaller than the standard threat tracker, and I believe it fits in a standard card box now.
Yep.
So that's super convenient. So if you get the new core set, your threat trackers will fit in a card box. I mean, in my opinion, the threat trackers, the original ones, I always thought were too big. They're just awkward. And so these are going to be really nice. I don't think I'm going to go out and buy another core set just for these smaller trackers, but if you're getting into the game now, you have that nice bonus.
Yeah, they're kind of, how would you say it, Chris? Cute?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I saw them, all I could think was
that failed.
Is that an inside joke?
With you? Like the last...
Oh.
Okay.
Was it last episode, the episode before? You said some card John picked was cute. It's cute.
Yeah, sounds like me.
Good one, Chad. All right.
No, when I saw those, all I could think was tiny trackers in my core. What?
So I did see a lot of people are complaining though, because the box is the size of the like the deluxe boxes we always get. That
it's
like halfway
L5R.
between. I thought.
Yeah, it's the size of the
is
L5R
it?
and Arkham box. It's 10 by 10, I believe.
I don't
so
buy
it
enough
is
different
it
games
is
to
too
know.
small to store the cards horizontally in, and that is a bummer. I agree, that is a bummer. But I also
because a lot of people buy 2 cores and they get the broken token type dividers, and they for a while.
Someone was complaining. I saw someone complaining that they bought the core set box online and the broken token online at the same time.
Ouch.
And then ended up with an insert that doesn't fit the box.
Oh, that's right. The broken token doesn't have a bottom to it, does it? I've got the Go 7 one that does. Yeah, that's a bummer.
Ow. Yeah, that's no fun.
I don't want to discount the people that are discouraged but because it doesn't store the cards horizontally if you're kind of just getting into the game and want a storage solution. That being said, if you're getting into the game far enough that you are considering a storage solution, then hey, awesome. That should be exciting and something that like I've got both Arkham and L5R where I just have 1 core of each of those, and I haven't gotten any further into either one of those games. I know. Don't at me, okay? Discord and listeners, don't at me. But I enjoy them, but I haven't gotten any further into them because of time. And you know what? I kind of put some little paper dividers in there for stuff, and I've stacked the cards back up in their order and put them back in their core, and they just sit happily on the shelf, looking beautiful and making me wish I had more time in my day to play some of these awesome games. So
absolutely.
I think this is a big deal, though, guys. I mean, for one, I wish they'd given this an article, and maybe we'll get one tomorrow now that we've said this out loud.
Yeah, I'm really confused.
Yeah, this is a big deal. Like, this was a lot of effort, and it's, I'm sure, not an insignificant amount of money. And this is a 7-year-old game that they not only reprinted the core to, they changed the layout of it, and maybe that was a manufacturing thing because they couldn't, they changed factories, so they couldn't manufacture the larger box anymore. But on top of that, they then put the time into doing the revision of the rules, and not just scaling down the current book to 80% of what it was, or something like that. But they did an actual revision of the rules, and they redid the tokens. They redesigned the threat trackers. Now the tokens themselves aren't actually any smaller, right? I mean, I know we had the gag on Facebook, but I'd seen on Board Game Geek someone musing that maybe the tokens were actually smaller. But as far as I know, they're not. I think. Do you guys know any different?
I don't know any different.
Okay.
Is Joe on here? No, he's not. Joseph.
He was a second ago. But yeah, we get revised core. We get some accessories. I mean, this is good days. I wish this was all new stuff, but at the same time, this is a great time to get in the game. So yeah, I'm very impressed by this.
I agree. What else, Chris? Could there be more?
There's a Gen Con announcement.
What? Yeah, it's kind of weird how it came out.
How did we find out about this? It was just through Gen Con itself?
No, this is through like some gaming store.
I thought it was like on the Alliance page or something like that.
Alliance, yeah.
Right. So it's the next Fellowship kit, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is even beyond Gen Con.
Right.
Right.
But we presume that.
Says it's going to be previewed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it says it's going to be previewed at Gen Con. So let me read it. Lord of the Rings LCG Fellowship Event Kit. Fantasy Flight Games Lord of the Rings, the card game, players will continue their quest to destroy the One Ring in your store during the 2018 Fellowship event. A new customizable scenario follows its Gen Con preview with this special event in local game stores throughout the world. Each kit supports 4 players with an exclusive alternate art promotional card and stunning playmat, in addition to an advanced copy of the standalone scenario designed for this event. Each copy of this new and exciting Lord of the Rings, the card game product, can be used by 1 to 4 players. Purchase one 2018 Fellowship event kit for every 4 players you anticipate attending your Fellowship event.
There's a couple of really neat things there.
Yeah, so just highlighting a few lines here. So players will continue their quest to destroy the One Ring.
But
To
we've
me-
already destroyed it.
Yeah, to me this is screaming
Mm.
scouring.
Aha.
There's no
Yeah.
way this isn't. I mean, it's a huge tease if it's not scouring of the Shire.
Right.
If you describe it that way.
Right. Yeah.
New customizable scenario. What do you think that means?
Oh man. So as soon as I read that, I had like a million ideas pop in. One of them being each player chooses which quest they're trying to beat. So maybe you have like 4 different quest stages and you're trying to beat them all at once. And each player gets to choose whether randomly or like each player can bring a deck that's good at one thing. So you take the quest card that's like easier for you to beat that way.
Mhm.
Or maybe there's like different sets of cards to shuffle into the encounter deck and you get to choose which ones. Like, okay, this time let's make it more monsters, or this time let's make it, I don't know.
More sharky.
Yeah, more sharky. So I don't
Yeah.
know. What do you guys think? What could customizable be?
That was my initial thought, was that it was going to take some cues from Poros about the multiple encounter sets you could shuffle in. But there's also a possibility that on its, like, reading this, looking at it being written by a PR person that doesn't necessarily play the game, continuing their quest to destroy the One Ring may not actually be a clue about anything, just because they might say that just because it was in relation to Lord of the Rings, the card game. But at a minimum, customizable could be, if it is saga related, customizable could be that it does tie into your campaign. So your any boons or burdens that you come in with can affect it if you're playing in campaign mode. And that, by the way, if it is a saga quest, that gives us an entire extra saga expansion worth of printout demands, which would be phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Because you got the 2, you've got Old Forest and Fog in the Barrow Downs, and then
Right.
you'd have this, and so we would hit the 3 main story points that are completely skipped in the movies, but we'd have our 3 main story points that are obviously part of the books and would be part of our game. So I hope it's scouring.
Yeah, and they'd all
as
be
a
Hobbit
lore nerd.
related, which is cool.
Oh yeah, you would say that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 1 player. By the way, 4 players again, which is
Yeah.
awesome. 4
That's
players.
the other thing. It says 4. All the other kits have been 3.
So
So
it
1
does,
player.
so one thing that's not in here is any mention of epic multiplayer. Right?
Yeah, I think 4 kind of obviates that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't do it unless there's. That would be something, but I mean, maybe there's some other new twist on that Caleb has come up with.
So either we're reading too much into it, or let the hype train just roll, and let's just try to hype it up as much as we can in our minds before it comes out, right?
I'm gonna let the hype train roll. It sounds like it's a lot of fun.
Maybe
Yeah.
we'll give Caleb ideas if it isn't what it is. It's like, hey, that's not bad.
I'm pretty sure that's at the printers by now.
No, for something in the future.
Mm.
Future ideas.
He doesn't listen to this podcast.
That's true. Doesn't even host it anymore. All right, so that's exciting. Gen Con is in August.
I'm kidding. It is coming up quickly, guys. I'm on the hype train for Gen Con, man.
Yeah, I'm getting psyched. I'm getting psyched for it already.
Year 2 for me. I'm pumped.
It's gonna be year 4. 4 years in a row.
Wow.
All right, Chris. That can't be all the news. There's got to be at least one more thing.
So the last thing is a rules reference. Like this came way out of left field
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting us to ever get something like this for this game. I think that's fair to say most people thought that. But essentially, it's a very detailed, like, glossary of all the terms in this game, in alphabetical order, detailing like all the little minutia that you never really even thought about. And it answers a lot of questions. It raises a few questions, but overall, it's a major work, I think, that went into something like this, and I'm really grateful.
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think do you think Caleb just got sick of answering certain questions over and over and over again, and he's like, screw it, I'm just gonna write this book and I'll just say, read the book. It's under M for multiple defenders. M.
He finally wrote his great American novel.
But the thing is, we already had the FAQ, right? And he would basically copy his emails and put them in the FAQ. But this thing is definitely more structured and like legalistic. You should check it out.
So you find it by going to Lord of the Rings homepage on FFG site, going down to what is it, rules? Yeah, and it's the second one down. And there's no article for this either, which blows my mind, because this has got to be, I don't know, 40, maybe 50 hours of work, probably.
At least. No, this is a remarkable amount of work.
Yeah,
because this is not. I mean, I grabbed my Arkham one. Yes, I actually pulled the Arkham box off the shelf in show prep for this. It's amazing. I grabbed the Arkham one, and then I looked up the L5R one, and it's not a copy paste of those things at all. I mean, obviously they're
really?
But some of the structure is similar, and in structure it's very similar to the L5R one, because the L5R one is a really good one. But it still took a remarkable amount of work to take some of those ideas and then translate basically the 7 years of this system that has been effectively patched and has had many, many, many different developers with different design philosophies and different language and different templating over the last 7 years, and create a rules reference that is pretty cohesive. And again, because it's digital doesn't mean a lot of work didn't go into writing it or doing the editing or doing the layout. I mean, speaking as someone that in real life is in the print business, that's the most expensive part of printing. And so just the fact that it's a digital product doesn't mean that this was something quick. I mean, this was a phenomenal amount of work. So I'm very interested to compare some of the older rulings against it, because I'm sure there have been things that have changed. But and I also, you had said, Chris, something about kind of a glossary of all the terms. There actually are, I think, some keywords missing. Things like, I didn't see indestructible in there. I didn't see like peril. Like some of the ones that are more scenario specific aren't in there. And I think that would be a great place for them to be in the future. Obviously, if you're playing a scenario, usually you have that rules reference or that rules booklet somewhere nearby. But as a single codified piece of here's the rules reference, those are rules that I would like to refer to sometimes, even if I don't have the sheet in front of me.
The question is, like, where do you stop with the scenario specific stuff?
Right.
So if you throw in
keywords,
like indestructible, I mean, what about like
Meyer?
I'm thinking of, like, do you include all the tests? Do you include
one time
possibly
stuff,
like the orc deck in scenario blah blah blah, or the capture deck in Mount Graham?
I think you could. And let me look at the encounter deck.
If you start putting like every scenario specific thing in there, then the majority of the content in the rules reference is going to be scenario specific, and it's going to be
I would, but I think you could put a third point on the encounter deck entry, saying that in some scenarios the encounter deck will instruct you to create a separate deck. These cards are made up of cards described in the scenario quest deck and follow the rules of that scenario, and that could be it, and that would cover the Mount Graham deck and all that stuff. But the timing test, I think, those might be a bridge too far. But I think indestructible and peril and even, I mean, I don't know, even Meyer and some of the time ones, that might be a good place for them, because like those, Meyer only happens once as far as I know, but time obviously happens. That happens quite a bit more. So Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know exactly where to draw the line.
just to give our listeners a bit of perspective on what kind of document we're talking about here, it's 29 pages long,
Mhm.
of all these terms.
Of double columned writing.
Yeah, double columns, all very technical. Like
But you
the word "may" has an entry in
Right.
here.
The word cannot have an entry, and it cannot be canceled according to the. I
yeah.
love that definition.
But you know what's weird is I started reading it and I ended up reading it cover to cover. Like for some reason it was just interesting reading. I thought I was just going to start like kind of glancing at certain entries, and I ended up just going from cover to cover reading the thing.
Wow, I did not do that. I have read very few of these, but
Well, you know them all already, Chris. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just
yeah, I mean,
mortals.
I do spend a lot of time on like the rules forums and the rules Discord chat, with some of my own questions and also helping people. So I've also written some of my own documents,
Yes.
trying to make sense of certain parts of the game.
Right, sure.
So, but no, there's definitely still stuff in here that is interesting to me to read. So I would like to get time at some point to read through all of this. But at the moment, I'm just going to count on your guys' reading through of it to bring up some talking points for today.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. I went through it. One of the reasons I read the whole thing because I wanted to come up with talking points. So I took screenshots of certain rules that I either had a question on or I thought was interesting, or something that I think I see a lot of questions on, like the same question over and over again.
Mhm.
Not that everybody listens to this podcast, but at least if
But
you
they
do
should.
and you've always maybe, well, let me see, how can I put this? Sometimes I have played a rule wrong and it's years later someone corrects me that I've been doing it wrong. I'm like, wow, I totally didn't know that's how that rule works. So maybe if you're listening to this, yeah, Mr. Underhill is a perfect example. I played most of my campaign incorrectly because I misread one word, basically. So we're going to go through the rules reference, not line by line. I'm not going to sit here and read 29 pages of rules, double columned. But yeah, we got a couple things to talk about. But before we get to that, let's have a word from our sponsor. Hi, folks. Today's episode is brought to you by the Middle-earth Tourism Association. Here at Meta, we promote all places of business throughout Middle-earth. If you're in the mood for some Elvis attractions, take a look no further than Gladriel's Glass Goods and Mirrors Emporium. Or, from elf stones to Hiflian ropes, you will find it at Gladriel and Celeborn's gift shop. Hey, enjoy a tasty treat at Celebrian Scones.
No.
Oh.
God.
Hey, or perhaps try your luck fishing on the Anduin. But first, head down to the Lady of Lorien's fishing supplies, Gladriels. Or perhaps you worry from your travels and the constant threat of death. Just sit down on the couch at Elrond's counseling services. And finally, sneak a peek at the Lady of Lorien's mirror, but keep what you've seen to yourself at Nenya Business. And now, back to our program. These are, of course, the hashtag COTR places that the people just did amazing jobs with, these puns. All right, John.
We got a lot more of these too, don't we?
We do. We're going to have quite a few commercial breaks. John, which one did you want to talk about first? Table talk? Not that
right.
Yeah.
So there were some funny little things that in here. Like I mentioned one earlier that there's a definition for cannot, and in the definition of cannot, it says it cannot be countermanded. I'm like, that's a fun little verbal thing. Some things are funny and game related, like there's still no hand size limit. And there's still no actual Grim rule in Lord of the Rings yet. But my favorite is actually the fact that if you have a card that blanks the text box of a card, that the flavor and the story text isn't blanked. I laughed out loud when I read that.
I took a screenshot of that one. Let me find it.
It's like Caleb's like, no, you're gonna read that stuff. I spent time on it. Not that he doesn't spend time on the other stuff too, but that one was great. But
Oh, I
yeah,
thought
the table talk rule actually is a little bit different.
Right.
And that it's still there is still a table talk rule, but it's a little more sensible. Where
this is my favorite. This is my favorite.
you want to read it? I've got it in front of me. If you don't,
Yeah,
okay,
you go ahead.
Okay, table talk. This is from the rules reference, not from the old rule book. Players are permitted and encouraged to talk to one another during play and to work as a team to plan and execute the best course of action. I would add in parentheses, or not. Players can discuss anything they would like, including cards in play and cards in their hand, but each player cannot look at cards in another player's hand or tell other players what to do. So there's a little bit of a change there, that they can't look. You can discuss the cards that you have in your hand. You can say what you have, but you can't let someone look at them.
Yeah.
So they need to know what the card is and does.
You can now say to another person, do you have a test of will? And they can say yes. You don't have to say, do you have a certain spirit event that can cancel the when revealed effects?
Do I hear the sonorous whistling of a wizard over the hill next turn? Yeah.
But you can't tell them to play it. That's the part I think is funny. You can't tell other players what to do. Do you have a test of will? Yes. Do you?
Can you play it, please?
Would you like to consider perhaps not letting my heroes die? Oh, I thought that was funny. You can't tell players what to do. No alpha gaming, guys.
Yep. It's cooperative. Even though you're always going to end up with the table captain. I mean, that's just how that goes.
Yep. AKA John.
Oh, God.
Let's go back to the blank thing. I think this is hilarious. If an ability causes a card's printed text box to be considered blank, that text box is treated as if it did not have any of its printed text. Text gained from another source is not blank. This includes included in a card's text box are its abilities, keywords, and traits. A card with a blank text box retains its flavor and or story text. What scenario caused that to happen? I just think that's so funny. Well, Boromir can no longer ready to save us, but at least we can read his, flavor text here and feel good about it, I guess.
Right.
What? I mean, everyone hates it so bad.
Yeah.
Getting a blank text box just makes it worse, and this is almost just like salt in your wound. But you can still read the flavor text. It's like... Now, on this note, this is one of the rules I got wrong for a long time. I did not realize it also blanked Sentinel and Ranged for a while with the blank text box. I thought it was just like the text, not the keywords. Even though it says keywords, I didn't think Ranged and Sentinel were keywords. So it's even worse than I originally thought it was, and I thought it was pretty bad. Now it's somehow even worse.
Pretty bad. I think maybe you got thrown off because most of those effects say treat each character's text box as blank except for traits. Right. And so that word except there, and you're like, oh, except for something, and then you think that, oh, this is a one-word thing that's on my card. Maybe without really thinking about it too hard, I could see how someone could mess that up and like not think that Ranged and Sentinel are also blank.
Right.
Obviously, those are not traits, but they kind of look like traits in a way.
Right. And I think it was also the thing of like, well, it can't be that bad. Like it's already so bad. It can't be another additional layer of badness. No, it totally is. It's absolutely that bad.
But now you can just ask another player if they have a test of will.
That's true.
If it was a when revealed effect that did it to you. So there.
And then hint that you want them to play it.
What do you think the worst possible hero is to be blanked?
Oh boy. That's a great question.
Galadriel would be bad.
I would say
Galadriel wouldn't be that bad because then you could.
No, Galadriel could quest. Yeah, she could quest.
That's true. She could quest.
I would say Baragond.
Ooh, yeah.
Because normally, if he's in your deck, you're planning on him like in a multiplayer. Okay, in a
Just-
multiplayer
Just for the
game.
Sentinel, you mean?
Yeah.
In a multiplayer game, if you're like totally relying on one guy handling most of the defense with his Sentinel character,
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
and he's limited down to one, and you're like, well, we have 4 enemies engaged with us, and we get to defend 1.
Right.
I don't know. That's a hard question. You have someone
yeah.
in mind besides maybe?
I would have
would
said
go
like Priya Boromir because you often depend on him to do all your combat. So him not being able to
Oh,
ready at all.
That's true.
But nowadays, I don't know.
Mark says the
Getting
twins.
Nine blanked would be
Ooh,
pretty bad.
yeah.
Yeah. The twins would be bad too.
Sam in a Hobbit deck
Oh,
blanked
yes.
would be bad.
Oh, yeah. I've had Sam blanked before, and that it's like, well, if I could have readied Sam.
Forget doing anything.
Yeah.
Sam suffers from cards cannot be readied by player card effects a lot. That'll sink your Hobbit deck really quick. All right. Well, I have one here that this is under the guarded. Now, maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe I've always been playing this wrong. But I'm reading under guarded. It says enemy and location cards attached to guarded objectives do not count their threat while in the staging area.
Wait, hold on. Where enemy and location cards attached. Wait, attached to guarded objectives.
Do count their threat. It's page 9.
See? Do.
Yep.
Oh, see, I was reading it wrong. I assumed there was a not in there. I'm like, why would he include this? Of course they
Okay.
count their threat. Because I'm just like, oh, come on. There's no way I've been missing this rule.
Yeah.
In my head, I put a not there, like do not.
So-
I don't know why.
Okay, do you guys so when you flip over a guarded card and you then reveal another card and attach that card to the guarded card,
Mm-hmm.
would you say the guarded card is attached to the guarding card, or the guarding card is attached to the guarded card, or both?
I feel like
reveal the next card
feel
from
like-
the
You follow
encounter
me?
deck and attach the
Yeah, I
card
feel like-
with the guarded keyword to it. So the card with the guarded keyword is the attachment. Just looking at the top, again, page 9, top paragraph of guarded. Reveal the next card from the encounter deck and attach the card with the guarded keyword to it, and place them both in the staging area. So yeah, I would say that the card with the guarded keyword is the attachment. And so
and
they
the
are
bad
attached to each
card
other.
is doing the guarding.
But then it says enemy and location cards attached to guarded objectives
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, let's
do
what
count their
does it
threat
mean?
while in the staging area. So here it's saying
Or
that
do not. Depends on how you read it.
There is no try.
right? So
Well,
enemy
can
and
a
location
card
cards
can they be like
attached to guarded
attached to each?
objectives.
Can they be attached to each other? Like they're both
Let's-
attached to each other.
I guess
The guarded
Yeah.
card's attached to the other card. The other card's attached to the.
it's
You know what I
it's
mean?
a bit weird. Like you don't say for an attachment. Do you say? Oh, actually, I guess you do. Right, the attached hero gains +1 defense or something like that, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't say the hero to which this is attached gains +1
Yeah.
defense.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Just not enough space on those cards.
So maybe they're attaching to each other.
They're attached.
Clinging to each other, one might say. Yeah, I don't know that it makes a whole lot of difference unless you've got a particular use case in mind where
I don't know. That might end up breaking something. I just can't think of it right now.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
oh boy,
No,
new fact incoming.
Yeah. So what was your question about this, Chad?
Oh, I totally misread it. You see, when it said
Oh,
basically
when
the
it
way
said
the,
do, you read don't.
yeah, because I guess in my mind I was like, why else would this sentence be here unless it was saying
Right.
something counterintuitive? Because in my mind it's like, well, of course they do. I'm like, oh, they don't. Oh, okay, that's neat. Like, I guess some people didn't count the threat, which would be really weird to me to not do, because you would just leave this location. I don't know. I'm just
So
like,
good luck for all of you single core players trying to solo Dol Guldur. And
yeah, I'm like, that just made that quest a lot easier if I'd known
Yeah,
this.
right.
I'm like, that
No, it
can't be
didn't.
right.
Nope.
A lot easier stretching it, but no. So they do counter threat. Just
They
for the
do.
record.
Words, reading. It's important.
Well, related to attachments, I had one. I didn't know if this was a new thing or just something I mean, it makes sense, but there was page 4.2. When a card gains the text "cannot have attachments," it immediately loses all of its attachments. I'm wondering if that's new or where that ruling came from. What the case was that generated that, because normally when you check to, like, you only need to check when you're attaching the card to something to see if the recipient card is legal for this to be attached to. So like if it's if the attachment says attach only to Gondor characters, you only need to check at that moment to see if that character is a Gondor character. If it loses the Gondor trait somehow in the future, that attachment stays attached. Whereas this says cannot have attachments, that just they all shoot off of this character into space somewhere.
Because that's a passive effect that keeps on constantly checking and making sure that the character doesn't have attachments.
Secondhand Took says something about thinking that it's new because people were taking advantage of Beorn.
Oh man. Okay. So
I figured we'd talk about this at some point.
So there's the whole story. Goes back to like Gen Con in I want to say like 2015 or something like that. I'm pretty sure.
Old man C stands telling a story.
I mean, I wasn't there, but I've followed this ruling for a while, and I'm glad this is kind of settled now. But essentially, I think it was Beorn of Hall of Beorn blog who was playing the Beorn hero, and
weird.
Strange.
His text box got blanked for some reason. He then attached some things to it, asked Caleb if it was okay, and Caleb gave the okay at the time. And then from there on, people assumed that, well, even if he gets back his cannot have attachments, Caleb at the time said, I believe, that he wouldn't lose the attachments, but he's immune to player card effects, so your attachments wouldn't really do anything. So there isn't too much point. Now, there are a couple attachments where they don't really refer to the hero itself and could maybe still work, like dark knowledge or something like that. But anyway,
resourceful, since the hero's resource pool is separate from the hero.
Maybe. This ruling really went against what I believed that cannot have attachments means, right? Because when it becomes unblanked, that text is a passive ability, cannot have attachments, right? And it should be always active. And if he has attachments, I mean, cannot is absolute, right? That's also in the rules reference.
Cannot be countermanded.
They should get discarded, in my opinion. That's what I thought. So I submitted a rules query, or someone else did, after we got in a fierce debate over this. And the ruling ended up being reversed. I think what had happened was that the original ruling was based off the thought that Beorn just had this ability where he's immune to player card effects, and not. It wasn't so much focused on this line that he cannot have attachments. So if it were true that Beorn's ability said immune to player card effects, then it would be the case that you could attach it to him when he becomes blanked, and they would stay on when he becomes unblanked. That's all true, but the fact that he also has this additional passive ability where he cannot have attachments, it does mean that when he becomes unblanked, he loses all attachments he has.
Well,
so after all that, I guess it was a big enough deal to be put into the rules reference.
Yeah, and it makes sense because there are attachments that, or there are cards that trigger off of the number of attachments or of a certain kind of attachments on a hero. So I don't know if you could get a pipe attachment on Beorn somehow, even if his card text box was blank. But Just thinking of some of the cards that say, like for some of the Hobbit cards, for each pipe attachment on your Hobbit hero, you get +X to all this. So, yeah, I think the ruling makes a lot of sense. I was just curious if it was new. That's I think sort of a good example of what this rules reference does a lot of times, and that is just clarify some things, do things that actually make a lot of sense, even if they do limit some really fun play things, like sticking a bunch of stuff on Bayorn after you finally get him blanked. But I think this is, I don't know, like I said, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, even if a character has that cannot have attachments, if that's not there and they're just immune, you can attach stuff to them and they just won't do anything. Right. Okay.
Yeah, and I think
that comes into play with locations, because some people said, well, can I attach Thor's key to this immune to player card effect location? And Caleb's like, go ahead. It doesn't do anything.
Right.
Go ahead.
But if you had some other card that said if the active location has an attachment, X happens, then that card is targeting the attachment, not the location, right? So that this hypothetical card could fire or could trigger.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. This game.
Hey, John.
I love it. Yo.
How about a word from our sponsor?
Ever wonder what the Fellowship did after destroying the ring? Well, many of them opened up businesses for folks like you and I to enjoy. Gimli has a number of successful businesses. There's Gimli's Guitar Shop, My Ox. There's also Gimli's IRS Collections Agency, specializing in looking at your allowable deductions. It still only counts as one. And who could forget Gimli's restaurant, the Salted Pork, which was unfortunately shut down after a food critic noted, "There are 3 golden hairs in my soup." Aragorn had a successful Michelin-starred restaurant, Do It Dine with Me, as well as the barbershop Hares of Elendil, and his antique shop called I can't even read this. Isildur's Heirlooms. That one hurts. That. But don't forget about the Hobbits. The Hobbits. Get yourself back on your feet at the Baggins Family Center for Back Treatment, the Chiropractor. Eat your fill at Merry and Pippin's Second Breakfast, a 24/7 breakfast cafe, or Sam Gamzee's Fish and Potatoes stand. Then head on over to Sam's Garden Center, Lothlorien, for your home. Gandalf.
Oh, God.
I know. Gandalf has been busy as well. Keep it secret, keep it safe at Gandalf's Security Supply. And a wizard is never late at Gandalf's Watch Boutique. And finally, thankfully, in his honor and memory, the Fellowship co-owns a travel agency, Boromir's Travel Agency. One does not simply walk into Mordor. Now back to our show.
Yeah!
Isildur's Heirlooms. Oh. I'm just jealous I didn't think of that. That was good. Thank you.
I like hairs on the window.
Man. My favorite was Gimli's IRS.
Yeah.
Deduction.
Still only counts as one.
Oh, that's awesome. They're so good. All right. Okay, let's keep going. Other things we've noted. For some reason I took a screenshot of the damage.
Oh, yeah. I had a question about that.
Okay.
Let me.
So I just want to ask one question, because for some reason I can never remember it. Archery and damage. So let's think about Frodo. Spirit Frodo being able to cancel damage placed on him. What can Spirit Frodo do in regards with archery?
He can cancel 2 archery. Well,
he can only cancel 2.
Well, he can raise his threat by 2. Not strictly canceling it, but you still have some sort of an effect. But yeah, you can only assign the amount of hit points a character has when it comes to archery.
I wasn't sure if archery was a 1 at a time thing, so he could only cancel 1.
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's what this reference is saying, right? So you you assign it and then you place it.
Yeah, and that actually gets to a larger thing that came up before.
Let's read this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's read the 3 steps, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. So number 1.
So damage tokens can be placed on character cards and enemies by attacks and various abilities. If a character or enemy has as much or more damage on it as it has hit points, it is destroyed. The following process is used to deal damage. 1. Determine the amount of damage to deal, including modifiers. 2. Assign the damage to the target, character or enemy. 3. Place the damage on the target, character or enemy.
So the first thing I want to say is the or more in parentheses. I think people misread that as you can assign more damage to a character that doesn't have some sort of weird indestructible keyword or something.
Well, no, it says if a character has or enemy has as much or more damage on it as it has hit points, it is destroyed.
But you can't assign more than 2 archery damage to Frodo.
Exactly. There's nowhere where it says you can assign. I mean, why Frodo? I mean, you could. Why not ask if you could assign, 20 archery to your Galadrim Weaver?
Right, I'm agreeing with you. I think people get tripped up by that or more. Like they think, oh, I can assign more.
I mean,
damage.
archery would not really be much of a problem if you could just, assign 20 archery to your Squire of the Citadel and just kill them.
No, I'm with you.
Of the Citadel.
No, I'm totally with you. I've seen people do it where they're like, oh, I'll just assign all this damage to this guy. I'm like, no, you can't apply it to the to more than a hit points. Sometimes things will build up more damage than, like, they haven't lost the indestructible trait yet, so you're just like adding on all this damage, and then when they finally lose indestructible, they die. And then another way, of course, is if you just pile on a ton of damage, so you can trigger a bunch of, like, when this enemy dies effects, like Foe Hammer and Legolas's ally ability or hero ability. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I only need 5 damage to kill this guy, but I'm going to kill him for 27 because I want to trigger some other things, or it's fun.
Yeah, you're just rage questing passage because you got stomped by something else. Yeah, understand. No,
but Frodo, sometimes I always have to, like, double think about it because I'm like, okay, you only can assign up to the hit points, but Frodo can cancel damage. But first, you have to follow these steps, and that doesn't work. You only can do 2. You can't cancel more than 2.
Yep, and it's not
or 3 if Bill the Pony, obviously.
Right, and any of these numerative effects, like, those are things that all that happens at the same time. That's not multiple instances of archery. It's like, in my head, I've always just compared it to, like, filling up a bucket, and that bucket is the event that happens, and we can respond to the bucket, however much water is in the bucket, we respond to the bucket as a whole. That's my extremely Southern way of understanding that. There you go. I don't normally talk like that, but sometimes I do. Anyway, yeah, you guys actually answered a question I had, or a clarification I wanted, as far as the 2 steps between assigning and placing, because it does make sense, and it is one of those things that clarifies and keeps us from doing things like what you described, putting 20 damage on your snowboard scout. I'm trying to think of another chump blocker. Squire is one of my favorites to kill off because it's actually good. But anyway, and again, that's the sort of thing that this rule reference, I think, does very well.
And I'm glad it's that way, because that would just neuter quests.
Right, it's not fun. I've got one.
Yeah, go for it. I'm trying to look up a tweet someone sent with a rules question.
We actually do have a couple of, also, I've got one from Matt we can talk about in a second. But this one from Matt J in the community, not Matt, the former co-developer of this game, because he should know the answers to those. But on page 6, destroy. So the rule, destroy. I'll read the ruling, or the definition here. When a hero or ally is destroyed, it is placed face up on the top of its owner's discard pile. When an enemy is destroyed, it's placed face up on the top of the encounter discard pile. Fair. All right, with it so far. Placing a hero, ally, or enemy in the discard pile as the result of being destroyed is not the same as discarding that card. Now, that obviously is, we get that so that we have the ruling on Horn of Gondor, the Radon Horn of Gondor, that's now fairly old, and I'm sure the last several printings of the core set have it changed. So many of our listeners would not know that it was ever any different. But I had a question about an interaction between one of the burden cards that I'm assuming I'm playing right and leaving in my campaign, Overcome by Grief, and a treachery in Cirith Ungol, Evil Vigilance. So, overcome by grief. When it sets up and it stays in your staging area, and it has this forced effect. Forced after a character is destroyed. If overcome by grief is unattached, attached to a hero, then counts as a condition attachment with the text, and this nasty condition attachment that you have to deal with. So, Evil Vigilance says when revealed, each player must choose either discard a questing character you control or raise your threat by 1 for each questing character you control. My question is, if I ditched a card from Evil Vigilance, does Overcome by Grief whiff? Because it's not destroying, and it says in here, placing a hero, ally, or enemy in the discard pile as a result of being destroyed is not the same as discarding that card. Now, I played it as if it was because I played it before this came out, but I'm curious as if I made it too hard on myself.
Yeah, I mean, if overcome by grief, I forget the exact wording, but if it triggers off a character being destroyed, then no, it would not trigger off
Agreed.
a character being discarded.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So yeah,
well,
I think it whiffs.
that's a slight piece of good news. It wouldn't have changed anything too much, but because I stuck it on my hero that had all the reading attachments, I still got.
Let's talk about. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead if you got one.
Oh, well, I was gonna say let's talk about what Matt J had to say because if I'm understanding, this has been clarified beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Like it's been ruled on.
Which one? He had 2.
What are we talking about?
Oh, he did. Okay, so
I've got one that I think is good news, and I've got one that I think is bad news. So you do your first one.
I was gonna talk about Stand and Fight.
Yep, that's the bad news one.
Okay, so Stand and Fight, he thinks works on neutral cards, but it's been ruled otherwise, correctly?
Yep.
Correct. Yes. Okay. He said the parenthetical. Thank you. Is clarifying text that you are not restricted to the spirit sphere. If neutral cards are not allowed, the word must or shall should be used instead of can. So Stand and Fight says choose an ally with a printed cost of X in a player's discard pile. Put that ally into play. Under your control, the chosen ally can belong to any sphere of influence. I agree with him. It should say must. Right?
Yeah. I think that portion of it is right. His argument is right. It should say must.
Because it's just telling you, like, yeah, you could play any sphere if you want. But it doesn't say you have to play a sphere. And as we all know, neutral, it's not a sphere.
Not a sphere.
But it's been ruled the other way. So I think he's more just like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an entry in here for can?
Ooh.
Which entry were you reading under, Chad? I missed it.
It's not an entry. It was a rules question sent by Matt. Just saying, like,
it was in the group.
It says the chosen ally can belong to any sphere of influence. But it doesn't say it must belong to a sphere of influence.
We have cannot, but not can.
Right, but with Stand and Fight, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been explicitly ruled.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're saying. It's kind of doesn't seem correct.
Well,
it's always been the understanding that that ruling definitely doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But
okay. Well, there we go.
I mean, that's just been the general consensus. Like, not what the words mean, but that's what the ruling is. It's just a ruling that's made to make it harder to recur, I guess, Gandalf.
Right.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
I almost treat it as an errata to the card.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like it should be at this point. Anybody with a new core, take a look at Stand and Fight real fast and let us know. Maybe it has been errata. Just haven't. I mean, we didn't even get an article about it, so shoot. There could have been lots of stuff. I mean, a test of will could be 2-cost neutral now, for all we know.
I mean, not only does it say it can belong to any sphere of influence, and say nothing about it, it must, right?
Right.
But it's clear that those words in parentheses were meant to clarify the meaning of the text, that you don't have to bring back a spirit ally.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but yeah, you just got to treat that one as an errata.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
well, that makes sense then.
You're right, because you then ask the question is, even if neutral is not a sphere, it says any sphere is no sphere a sphere.
No.
Oh. All right, John. I just remembered his other rules question. That's funny.
Oh wait, I think. Sorry, this is one that he pasted in. This wasn't originally from him. This was originally from Wandering Took. It says, here's one that always gets me. If I have an engaged enemy with ambush attached, can I remove ambush to declare an attack, but not declare any attackers myself? That is, only hit the enemy with ranged attacks, assumably coming from other players across the table. So, I would lean towards yes, because the ambush trigger on that card is an action, and you have an action window at the beginning of the combat phase. And page 4, talking about attacks outside of combat phase, it says follow each step of player attack resolution on page 26. So go over there. It's 6.8b is the particular point we're looking at. And it says exhaust any number of characters he or she controls. 0 is an any number. And then 6.8.1, the immediate next framework step before anything else happens, is the ranged option for players with ranged characters to join in the attack. I think so.
God, it's been a long time since I played that quest with ambush.
I'm pretty sure it works.
Oh my God! Wait, is he talking about?
It's not a quest with ambush.
It's
the trap card.
Yep, combat action. The
ambush
player.
I thought he was talking about. I thought he was talking about like that giant bear that has ambush on it or something. I'm like, what a niche question. I don't know. All right, I see. The trap.
Yeah. I think it fires just fine. And I think that's a heads up play.
I'm pretty sure you can also do that during regular combat. Like your guys are exhausted, but someone else has an archer. They can attack your enemy.
Yeah,
you declare an attack and they join in.
Opening that window, and you in opening that window inherit all the framework steps of a player attack.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to listen to what you guys just said and try to understand it the whole time.
You impute all of the steps of the play. Oh, I'm sorry. That's
no. The whole time I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, what the hell does this have to do with that giant bear? All right, well, all right. Now I'm on the same page. I see it.
You gotta put the Hobbit deck down and play a trap deck from time to time. They are getting more fun.
Oh my God. All right. Hey, let's have a word from our sponsors while I catch my breath here and figure out what the hell's going on. All right.
All right.
Mordor. You have heard the horror stories, but we here at Meta say the Black Gate is open for business. You can fulfill any need you have here and at other evil strongholds. You can furnish your home at Morgoth's carpet store, Ball Rugs. Enjoy a fresh brew at Morgoth's Craft Brewery, Belgrog. Buy something nice for that special someone in your life at Sauron's Spanish Jewelers, One Ring to rule them all.
Boo.
It's funnier to read that one. It looks so stupid. Or Antonator's jewelry store. If you want to rule them all, put a ring on it. Hey, keep your preciouses secure with Bar Adore home security. One does not simply walk in.
Oh, wow.
Master your welcoming smile at Mouth of Sauron's dental services.
Oh, no thanks.
Take your kids to Azog's Underground Zoo. We have a cave troll. For the latest fashion, visit Gollum's Hot Pants store located in the Dead Marshes. Find all your grocery needs at a Haradrim Super Moomac Market. Oh, I said it wrong. Super Moo Market. Dang it.
Take two.
Blew it. Or go out on the town at Gollum's Sushi Shop. Raw and wriggling. Don't want a table for one? No problem. Call Gollum at 1-800-ELF-ROPE to find hot locals. And now, back to our show. Moo Market. I said it wrong again.
Super Moo Market.
That's hard to say. Super Moo Market.
Super Moo Market. Got to put
the does not roll off your tongue.
The emphasis on the right syllable.
That's right. Thanks.
By the way, I forgot to mention this after the first commercial break. For whatever reason, it totally sounded like you said Elvis instead of Elvish.
It's Elvish.
Did, yeah.
Talking about Elvis and Galadriel, and it took me a minute to figure out what was going on.
Yeah. I have a slight
Yes.
list.
Yeah, I saw thankfully not on our property. I saw an Elvis garden gnome today, and it just really that when you said Elvis and I just thought of that, I'm like, wow, I'm in a very bad headspace right now.
I slaughter the English language quite a bit, and my wife is a speech therapist, and she never lets me get away with anything. Like if I say
Wow.
wreath, but I'll say reef instead.
Reef?
Yeah, that's not. She
You say
corrects me every
Pacific
time.
instead of specific? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad, to be honest. Hey, so I want to talk about action windows.
Do it.
Okay, so there's
do
this
we have an
amazing...
advertisement for action windows? Action windows and doors. Giving you the advantage over the encounter deck since 2011.
See clearly through our action window. So there's this really great, much more expanded action window chart.
Yes, I love it.
It's really
So
cool.
Good.
Except, okay, so this might just be another one where I'm just not reading it correctly. I always thought there was an action window at the beginning and end of each phase. Wasn't that?
Let me go back and look at
Nope.
rules of play.
So the original...
for example, I always travel phase does not have an action window at the beginning. You must travel before doing any player actions. That's a tricky one. However, 99% of the time, it's a moot point because you could just do whatever action you're planning to do right at the end of the quest phase.
Right.
But there are situations where this comes up. Like, for example, I think it's Mariner's Compass that is a response rather than an action, just so that you can do its ability before travel.
All right, I'm looking at the original rule book right now.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking back in the text itself, not in the graph at the end, because I'm wondering if there was something that got missed. This is really thrilling stuff to listen to. Thanks to all our listeners.
Well,
action windows are pretty exciting, I gotta say. They
are.
All right, wait.
Yes.
Now, what about on page 21? Look at the end of in the encounter phase. There's no action window, right?
Oh, I gotta open up the rulebook now.
So at the end of the encounter phase in the original rulebook, there's an action window after... Oh, engagement checks, action window. Oh, they just keep adding these encounter phase ends.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's what's messing me up. I didn't actually read this that close. So all these... Okay, I see. So on this action window chart, every single phase now has an added little... This phase ends. This phase ends. And the original rulebook
begins and this phase ends.
Okay, see, the original rulebook didn't have either of those two things.
Nope.
So that's why I was like, I thought it was always ended in green. Or red, I guess, in this case, for action window. Oh, that's kind of nice to know that that's when the phase ends. Because there's a lot of cards that you're like, when does the phase actually end? Well, it's after you take your last action while you're in that phase. There's a beat. That's when the phase ends. Now you're on to the next phase.
Yep.
Which is really important at the end of the game, the end of the round. That's always where that's always a tricky one. End of the round versus end of the refresh phase. You're wondering which one goes first or second.
Really? How can the end of the round go before the end of the refresh phase? That seems seems obvious to me, the order there.
I think it's Fog on the Barrow Downs. Something about Tom Bombadil when he leaves play versus when some other card effect triggered. They both talked about the end of the refresh phase, but one was like the end of the refresh phase, and one was like after the end of the refresh phase. But then it's like, well, aren't you in a new round at that point? But there's actually a beat. The refresh phase ends, and then the round ends. Because I think Tom Bombadil leaves play at the end of the round, and something. But there was like, this happens at the end of the refresh phase, and you're like, at the end of the refresh phase, isn't that the end of the round?
So I have a question for you guys that read through this whole rule reference that has to do with what we're talking about here. So
I'm surprised you want my input based on how horrible I've been reading this thing. But go ahead, Chris, fire away. I got some awesome advice for you right now.
Because this is one rule that I haven't really figured out what I think should be the right way of dealing with it, and I think we got an official response, but it wasn't clear to me like that both sides were really understanding what the question was. So so let's say you have an enemy that makes an attack at the end of the round. There are enemies that can do this, like
Doesn't the Mumak?
Does the Mumak? Okay. Yeah. There's plenty, right? So this actually is not all that rare. So the Mumak attacks you, and then during an attack, it opens up all the standard action windows for attacks, and you can perform actions. Now, what if you do an action that has a phase-long effect at this point? So if you trigger Blood of Numenor,
okay.
So trigger Blood of Numenor, you get +X defense until the end of the phase, right? This is taking place in this little like gray area called the end of the round. So my question is, when does that effect expire? And well, that's pretty much the question. Does it expire at the end of this attack, because then you run into the end of the round?
Let me read what it says.
Definitely can't advance past that, or does it survive into the next resource phase?
Right. Okay.
And does that make a difference if this attack had instead taken place instead of at the end of the round, but at the end of the refresh phase? I think there's also enemies that can attack then. Sure. Does that change the rule or not?
Okay, so 0.1 round ends. This step formalizes the end of the game round. Proceed to step 0.0 of the next round. The end of the round is an important game milestone that may be referenced in card text either as a point at which an ability may or must resolve, or as a point at which a lasting effect or constant ability begins or expires. So they're referring to it as a point.
Right.
Not a phase.
The question is, we are technically outside of any of the phases, because the phase has ended. The last phase that we were in has ended, and now we're at the end of the round.
It sounds like it's not a phase at all.
It's not, and so you have to wonder: can you even
trigger?
Can you even trigger?
Like
by a strict reading, you can't. But I think
can you trigger a card that references a phase? Is that the question?
Yeah, rather than for this attack or something that says to the end of the round.
I don't think you can. It doesn't sound like you're in a phase.
Yeah. That is.
But does it, just because you're not in a phase doesn't mean? No, I don't know. I mean,
I know it doesn't make. It's one of those rulings that is a templating problem, because logically, if you're dealing with an attack, the intent should be that players can play cards in their action windows to do things about the enemy attack. Like, logically, that makes sense. That's probably the intent of the play.
Maybe, but maybe these end of the
trigger. Well, the enemy trigger for at the end of the round is just so that players, so that maybe there was templating, not laziness, but it was easier to say at the end of the round versus at the end of the refresh phase for writing.
Or it's on purpose to make the enemy harder to defend or kill. It could be on purpose.
Yeah, I think the question restated is: can you trigger phase-based effects during an enemy attack that takes place at the end of the round? And if
that's a great question,
maybe we can get an answer from Caleb on that specific point.
I'm gonna say no.
I mean, maybe, but he does sometimes make rulings that they don't necessarily make things easier on it, but they do make sense. So
just because the thing right before it says refresh phase ends, and then the very next thing is, the resource phase begins. That's a good question. Yeah. These are the kind of questions that keep us up at night.
Not really.
Yeah, I can't really make sense of it. And I mean, especially if an enemy attacks you at the end of a phase. So forget the end of the round, end of the phase. You are in a phase. So if you trigger that effect, is it over immediately, like as soon as you trigger it? Because you are in this end of phase land, or does it?
It says not after the end of the phase. So at the end of the phase, at that moment, then this thing triggers. So we're still in the phase. We're at the end, but we're not after the end.
No, but
So you
right.
I know what you're saying. I'm
Right. So Blood of Numenor lasts until the end of the phase. So if I trigger that during an attack that's made at the end of the phase.
Yeah, can you still trigger Blood of Numenor? Yeah, that's a good question.
What if you had already triggered Blood of Numenor before? I mean, can you trigger it now again? Or if you trigger it and it lasts into the next, I mean, there's a limit of once per phase on these
Right.
things, right? So if the ruling is it lasts into the next phase, then you could presumably trigger it again next phase because it's a different phase and get double the effect. They seemed weird to rule it that way. But then
I think having these boxes, I feel like I'm in that box. So like the refresh phase ends is a box 7.5. So if you trigger something while you're at the refresh phase ends box, as soon as you leave that box, that is done. Like whatever you did is over. The phase is over. But you're still in the phase box. It's almost kind of nice that they've added these the phase begins, the phase ends boxes because you know exactly where you're standing. That's how I'm looking at this.
Okay, so here's an example. The Black Serpent. So at the end of the encounter phase, either remove X progress from the main quest, or the Black Serpent makes an attack against the first player.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually come across this a few times in the recent quests.
Sure.
He attacks you at the end of the phase. What if you trigger a phase-long effect during that attack? Does it last through the duration of the attack? Does it, last to the next phase? It seems really.
I think it doesn't last to the next phase, but it lasts to the duration of the attack.
I think it lasts for the duration of the attack because you're in the box 5.
But then, what if you had already triggered it earlier in that phase?
You're still in that phase. You haven't.
But it's supposed to.
Right.
Yeah, but it lasts until the end of the phase, and now you're at the end of the phase. So shouldn't it have expired?
You're at the door. You're not through the door.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it would seem.
It would have to say after the end of the encounter.
So your picture of the thing of the structure of the boxes is there's a box where it says trigger all the things that happen at the end of the phase.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a box after that, still within the phase, saying the end of the phase.
I think that all takes place in the same box.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up some of the
because
wouldn't it say after the end of the encounter
because
phase?
then with the decision of what finishes first, like what triggers at the end of the phase first, the expiration of your Blood of Numenor or the attack from some enemy.
What's the exact wording?
I'm looking for card of I think under effects, Chris. It might say it, but I don't know if I can find it quick enough.
Yeah, spend one resource from attached hero's resource pool to give attached hero +1 defense for each resource in its resource pool until the end of the phase.
Yeah, I think we're just going to need a ruling from Caleb about this, a blanket ruling, because the templating has changed. And
yeah, but I just can't understand. Like, I can't figure out really any ruling that makes sense. So that was kind of why I was confused by this.
Yeah,
because I can't even think of like a way I would rule it that would satisfy logic.
Well, yeah, because we're dealing with card metaphysics at a certain point, basically.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't want to hold the whole podcast up for this.
Right. No, I think that's an important question, and I think that this is something that I haven't poked this many holes in some of the newer LCGs, but I don't know that this is necessarily a problem with some of the others. I just
think it does have a tendency to become a real, like, not just a theoretical issue.
Right.
Like there's enough effects in the game that fall in these categories that that it could really, a player could reasonably come across it.
I think so too, and I agree that it's a good question to ask. I think I would pick the version or pick the ruling that allows play to continue with the least amount of interruption. So it's like, okay, Blood of Numenor, you already triggered this phase. We haven't actually left this phase. Okay, we're at the end, but we're not through the end, using my door analogy. So yes, this enemy attack happens at the end of this phase. Your Blood of Numenor is still active. You can't trigger it a second time because we're not into another phase, but you still have it active, so that we can then interact. It opens up all the action windows for us to respond to this and do actions to mitigate this attack.
But you are saying you can trigger it and it will last through the duration of the attack, even though
I
you're
would think so,
already
yeah,
at the
because
end
at
of the
least you are
phase.
in a phase at that point. The one that I'm really not sure about is the at the end of the round, because we're not even in
Yeah.
a phase
Okay.
at that point.
Well,
And I'm
under
with you there.
lasting
We're in-
effects, it says a lasting effect expires as soon as the timing point specified by its duration is reached. This means that until the end of the round lasting effect expires just before an at the end of the round ability
Does it
or
spell out
delayed
lasting
effect
effects?
may initiate. I don't know. I have to read into that a little more.
So
Wow.
until the
Wow.
end of the round expires before at the end of the round.
Uh-huh.
So your Blood of Numenor is done by the time
Wow.
this
Yeah.
enemy attacks, and then what? Can you trigger it?
I don't
Or
think
what
so.
if? Or
It
what
feels
if you?
like you're not in a phase.
Or what if you hadn't triggered it? There is that limit of once per phase.
Stay
So
tuned,
if I
folks.
haven't
You'll
triggered
find
it-
out on next episode.
Yeah, no, this is a legit question. I think we should follow up on this one, because this one, as Chris said, is something you're going to run into, because wow, that lasting effect ruling there is,
Good find, Chad.
geez.
It
Yeah,
makes it more complicating.
good looking out.
Well, yeah, that's what I do.
I think you could resolve it by saying, so you trigger all you end all things, like anything that says until the end of the phase expires, then you do all things that occur at the end of the phase.
Right.
And then anything that happens during at the end of the phase that triggers until the end of the phase, you then trigger it after that, but before the next. Like you keep adding these new boxes. Like if you generate a
Right.
new box,
Mhm.
like within the end of the phase, if you generate a new end of the phase effect, you basically add another box after, but before, like after the current box, but before the next phase. That is like end all of the stuff again. And then if you generate any new lasting effects till the end of the phase, you have to add another box until like there's no more stuff. And then you go into the next phase.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way I can really make sense of it.
That's clear as mud to me.
No, I'm with you, Chris.
No, I'm with you.
Now you have convinced me because of that particular ruling on page 11 for those of you playing along.
Wow.
Okay.
But it's still weird because I mean you trigger Blood of Numenor during an enemy attack, like you have to make it expire at some point.
That's
But
true.
no matter where you put it, it seems weird. So anyway, we'll follow up with that and see what Caleb says.
And if you're a new player, I hope you're still listening by now.
Please continue playing the game.
Please. This
These
doesn't
are the
come up that
questions
often.
that keep us up at night, right?
It's a solo game, or it's a cooperative game. It's your table. Have fun.
Yeah, I mean the whole action windows that open up during combat, like outside of the combat phase, really like, oh man, there's just so many rules problems with
There
those
is.
sorts of things. And
Yeah.
But we
I almost
have
wish
to
it was a
have them, right?
special.
It would suck if there wasn't them.
it would suck. Yeah. I don't really, know a way of dealing with it from a rules standpoint, because either you get rid of them entirely and it makes the game less interesting, or you don't let players trigger actions outside the combat phase, in which case that becomes also very punishing to the players and
Right.
less interesting.
Yeah, I think they're a reduced action window or something, like, because there's what
You could reword every enemy that attacks at the end of the phase to say, like, just before the end of the phase, this enemy makes an attack. And I think that would solve things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that would be if we could write the game again from the beginning.
So just to kind of summarize, this is all because there's certain cards that are really not meant to be played at certain points in the game, but combat windows open up during immediate attacks or additional attacks at weird times that allow you to play these cards. So that's what we're talking about here. That's basically like, hey, now I can just sneak this in, and I wouldn't have been able to. Chris, what do you say we take it to the sponsors one more time here?
All right. Hi, folks. Meta would like to take you to the exciting realm of Rohan. If shopping is on your mind, then look no further than Theoden's high street clothing store, the Gap of Rohan. Complement your attire at Fangorn's footwear accessories store, Hughorn's Shoehorns. What time do you think we have? Specializing in herbs, Saruman's garden center will spice up your meals. Need to get away from it all? Take the hidden path at Ganbury Gan's Woodland Woses Walks.
I gave you all the tongue twisters.
Don't
Nice.
assume just because they tried to kill thousands of peaceful women and children, the Uruk-hai loyal to Saruman are all bad. Why, you can enjoy a burger at White Tower. Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
I love it when Chris has to do voices.
Need to freshen up? Head over to the Saruman of Many Colors laundromat, now with color-catching cloths, so that white stays white. Tired of horses? Then head to Grima's car dealership, the Fords of Eisen. Prices so fair, so cold, like a morning of pale spring still clinging to winter's chill.
Fords of Eisen.
Seeking some advice? Check out the Grima Worm Tongue Counseling Center.
Ugh.
Need to lose a couple pounds? Uglik's Uber Gym. You'll run as if the very whips of your master was behind you. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Oh, I love it.
Fords of Eisen. That one wins.
Yeah, Fort of Ice. That was great. Thank you, Chris. That was great. Oh, that's funny. God, and I couldn't think of one. You wouldn't believe how many of these. I have one more to read, like group of them, but it's not all of them. There was so many of these COTR places. I could not include them all.
To be continued,
amazing.
maybe.
Yeah, I like this word from our sponsor type thingy.
Yeah.
All right. What? So, Chris, was this what you and Sepidus were talking about, or Sepidus?
No, we were talking about probably something equally as esoteric, which is the process of revealing cards from the top of the encounter deck.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is a nightmare. If you want to get into this, it is very twisted. There's just so many effects in this game that have to deal with the revealing of encounter cards. That this is one of the things that I said. I typed up a whole document on how to actually organize stuff to make sense of all the rulings that we have without contradiction. So, okay, for example, Eastern Crows that has 1 hit point and Surge, the damage from Thalon. So if Thalon's questing, he damages the crows, kills the crows before the Surge keyword on the crows triggers.
And that's because of the way Thalon is worded.
Yeah, because Thalon has this wording that he says as the card is being revealed.
Right.
And it's a passive effect.
It's a passive effect. And it really just came down to, I think, a ruling that Nate French made. I guess it kind of makes sense now that we know his undying love for Thalon.
That's true. Thalon kills all.
That he's such a great counter to those 1 hit point Surge enemies. But so that's just one example of something that has to do with the revealing of encounter cards. There's plenty others like Quick Ears, which cancels an encounter like an enemy. It cancels the encounter card. There's the door is closed. That cancels the card as well. The Ministerial Lamplight can also cancel a card. Same with Black Rider Frodo. Now, they all have to interact in a certain order to make sense with all the other effects that trigger off revealing cards. So if you say you have Thalon and a Ministerial Lamplight, both active, right? And with Ministerial Lamplight, you guessed enemy was going to show up from the top of the encounter deck, and it turns out that it is a crows, it is an Eastern Crows or whatever. Do you trigger the damage from Thalon first, or do you discard it first from the Ministerial Lamplight? So that's just an example of why the order might come into play. And there's just like 100 of these effects. There's so many keywords like doomed and prowl, peril, surge. They all have the specific rules revolving around being revealed from the encounter deck. Then there's the question of when can you play Test of Will or Eleanor? Can you cancel? Like, for example, what if a card says that it's immune to player card effects, and you reveal it, but then you have, say, the door is closed, which cancels the encounter card. What takes precedence there? Does the door is closed mean that you don't even start resolving the text on the card, including the wording immune to player card effects?
So what you're asking
Have
is
you canceled it before that comes online?
Is that kind of what we're talking about? Play versus
exactly. So that's why we run it. That's why we run into the issue of what it means for a card to be in play, and enter play. So is the card you've revealed off the top, is it in play?
No.
And if it's not, then does that mean that, say, if it's immune to player card effects, that means that it's not quite immune just yet because it's not in play and therefore its text is not active? My argument is that a card, so the only way I've really managed to make sense of this is to say that a card, as you're revealing it, is considered to be in play, and therefore its text is active, but has not yet entered play. So you haven't put it in the staging area yet. That's when you would say it enters play. So you drawing a parallel to the ruling around like considered to be engaged with you versus engages you, right? We know there's a difference between those two, right?
Yes, and those things.
Because, I mean, how can a card not be in play if you're resolving all the text on the card, right? You turn up a treachery, you start resolving the when revealed effects. That card has to be in play, right?
It's okay. So
if it's not in play, you shouldn't be resolving its effects. We know that cards not in play don't have active text. You're not supposed to, trigger all passive effects of every card in the discard pile, for example.
Right. There does need to be a better description of what happens in that phase, or in that state between having been revealed but before it's in the staging area. There is, on the player card side, event cards are explicitly ruled now to never actually enter play, but their effects do, or their abilities do affect play. And so I think on the encounter card side that could be a way into explaining the nature of the encounter cards as they're being revealed, that they have not yet entered play because it's not in the staging area, but their effects do affect the game. But I'm with you. I honestly was hoping, when I saw there's a rules reference, I was hoping there would be something sort of like your reveal guide in here to kind of step us through what's going on, because I excuse me, I think we need it, and we need an official word on some of this stuff, because you read these, like you read the cards top to bottom and you resolve them fine. That gets you only so far, because you get into some timing questions, like you said, with Fallon and other things. Really, the one that I thought that you brought out was the most interesting, was a card that's immune to player card effects, but you have the door is closed. And now, granted, that one, you said the door is closed, right? Yeah, because it cancels the entire card. Now that one, do we have cards that are immune to player card effects where there are multiple copies? Because doors closed requires a copy of the victory display. Yes.
Great Barrow.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So under staging, it talks about how treachery cards aren't actually put in the staging area.
Yeah. Nothing is in play.
Right.
But it does, as a card is being revealed. I wish we had a more formalized statement that as a card is being revealed from the encounter deck, it is not yet in play, but the effects of that card do affect the state of the game.
Because it says staging is a term used to describe the process of revealing an encounter card. resolving its effect, and placing that card.
Yeah, I mean, why? What makes you want to say that it's not in play? I mean, there's nothing on the text of a regular treachery card, for example, that references its status as an out of play card. I mean, we know we're not
Right.
supposed to resolve card text on out of play cards unless it specifically refers to its state as an
Right.
out of play card.
I mean,
Like
I'm going based on. Go ahead.
we for example, Fallon and Toughness, we know that well, I got a ruling from Caleb that said that Toughness will stop Fallon's damage. So the Toughness keyword must already be active in this limbo state, because we know that's the state at which
Okay.
Fallon does his damage, because we have the ruling for the crows, right? So somehow, like, all the game text on the card has to be active.
So what's
And to me,
toughness?
that just
After
means toughness means that any amount of damage dealt to this enemy is reduced by 1.
Okay.
Right. So you have an
Right.
enemy with toughness come out, Fallon's damage gets canceled.
Mhm.
So have you looked at staging on page 17? Because it says step
Yeah, I
1.
think I did.
Okay, reveal the encounter card by turning it face up so its game text is visible. So I'm imagining you got your encounter deck and you're just flipping the top card over, leaving it on top of the encounter deck. And then there's a step 2, resolve any keywords and or when revealed effects. And then you either place it in the staging area or you discard it. So this to me, as far as like toughness goes, is like Fallon does his ability during point number 1, but then point number 2 is when toughness triggers, because you're resolving any keywords or when revealed effects. Or is it when the game text is visible? Like is the game text being visible mean the game text is active?
Yeah, you see, from the document that I put together, there's no way I could summarize it in 3 points like it is done here.
Right.
There's just way too many keywords that have specific effects, right? I mean, you could just design a keyword that is meant to trigger during point 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
But point 2 says resolve any keywords and or when revealed effects. So you have a direct contradiction, right?
Yeah.
This way, like the way this is written, you couldn't actually create a keyword,
Right.
even if you made the rules to do so, to trigger during step 1, because which I think is what toughness is supposed to trigger during, because you have
that
this.
seems weird to me.
You really, for the keywords, you really just have to look at each individual keyword and figure out what the rules for that keyword are.
So do you think Fallon's ability triggers right at the beginning of step 2 for the crows, so then they die? But since it's also happening right at the beginning of step 2 for toughness, the toughness keyword then triggers?
So, wait, you're saying Fallon triggers at the beginning of step 2, resolve any keywords?
Yeah. So right at the beginning, Fallon triggers, kills the crows before Surge. But since
but Surge is a keyword and toughness is a keyword, right? They're both keywords. So how can Fallon be stopped by toughness but not Surge, according to this framework, right?
Because
this framework
the crows are
is
dead.
what I'm saying.
Right, and this is where having toughness in this rules reference would be very handy, because I bet you because the toughness, it sounds like it's the encounter card is responding to the assigning of damage.
Yeah, you have to think of keywords as just shorthand for a very long paragraph of rules.
Yeah,
right, and sometimes that paragraph of rules is a passive ability, like in the case of toughness.
Right. But there's no
other times the keyword is something that triggers that's basically a whole paragraph that starts with when revealed. In the case of Prowl, that those two have to be resolved differently.
Yeah.
Right. Keywords are just shorthand. They're not. I don't like to see them in a step here, like in a structure like this.
Right.
All grouped together under one thing, because keywords can mean anything.
I wonder if a 1 hit point enemy with toughness would die. That would be the real question.
It would not, according to
that ruling,
the ruling that toughness stops Fallon. It doesn't matter how many hit points he has, right? It's not like You do the
Toughness
damage
cancels
with
it, or you remove
yeah,
it?
it cancels it.
Oh,
It
it
doesn't.
cancels it. It
It,
cancels
it doesn't.
Oh,
it
okay,
doesn't
okay,
heal.
okay.
It doesn't heal the damage
Okay,
after
alright,
It's
the
a hard
damage
cancel.
taken.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. My mistake. I thought it. Yes, that makes no sense then. I mean, what I just said makes no sense. It would not die. If toughness cancels Talon, then a 1 hit point enemy would not die for sure. Another good one.
Yeah, and this is there was a really extended discussion in Discord about this, and listeners may want to scroll back up and find that in the rules discussion channel, because it was. I think it's very interesting. I think the way into this is, as I said, understanding how the event cards work and applying that same logic to this sort of not technically in play but affecting the game state existence that clearly that the encounter cards have as they're being revealed. But I would appreciate a formal actual staging guide, and for a version 1.1 or 1.01 of this document, I would love to see that, because this is overall this document is a huge step in the right direction. But with 7 years of stuff, we've definitely got some things.
So you want a rules reference? The reference?
The reference. Rules reference the reference.
In Discord chat here, AAA Ray says that other card games use something called a resolution zone, something akin to that. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. So card effects
I got
able to resolve or be referenced, interacted with, but not actually in play. That could work for this. We need some sort of like official status to things like in cards as they're being revealed, but before they're in the staging area. We also need an equivalent thing for events played from your hand before they're put in the discard pile. Because those exist
already
somewhere, right?
I think there is for events.
It's not formalized anywhere I can see.
Well, that's maybe they're working on that too. Like maybe this is just the start.
Like I've heard Caleb say before, like just put it in front of you and then resolve it and then put it in the discard pile. But I've never heard like an official term for that area of like limbo.
Because it's not your player area, because the player area would be in play. It says that specific event cards cannot enter play.
All right, well, that's a good one. I wrote that down. I had something under forced on page 8 that I thought was funny. Maybe, again, this might be another one that everybody knows except me. But if 2 or more forced abilities would initiate at the same moment, the first player determines the order in which the abilities initiate, regardless of who controls the cards bearing those abilities. That seems like a real griefy paragraph ruling there. I can imagine. There's got to be scenarios where like player number 3 has 2 forced abilities going off. One is worse than the other, and the first guy's like, no, reverse that. Do it the other way. I want you to take that attack first, not that attack.
Yeah.
Or something.
I mean, this is just something that has to be defined some way, and so it's just clean just to have the first player resolve all timing disputes and then just be done with it.
Which is also pretty funny for determining who the first player is. Did you guys read that?
Yeah.
Oh, where does it say that? I'm trying to remember it. It talks about if you can't decide who's going to be the first player. Oh, what did it say? I'm trying to find where that was. Do you remember, John?
Setup, I think. Yeah,
okay.
I think it's under setup.
Read it if you find it before I do.
Yeah, I've got
God, it was funny.
Printed version here. Determine first player. If this the players determine a first player based on a majority group decision.
Oh yeah.
If this proves impossible,
yeah, that's it.
Determine the first player at random. Also find better friends.
Screw you guys! I'm the first player.
No, I'm the first player.
You were last time. Guys, this is impossible. We're gonna have to do it randomly.
and then after this epic friendship-ending fight, once determined, the first player takes the first player token and places it in front of him or her as reference.
And then all other players threaten to play Follow Me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is my goal at Gen Con, to make the determination of the first player impossible. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to make it impossible.
You'll find a majority group decision. All you need is one other person to...
Well, what if it's a 2-player game? I mean,
filibuster.
2-player.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's funny. I thought that was hilarious.
What about a 1-player game? Sometimes I just still can't decide.
The setup, it's not good. Let's see. I think that is all I really had.
Yeah, we had a bunch of this.
Oh yeah, there's my setup.
Oh, the letter
spheres,
X.
and the spheres of influence is funny too.
Yeah, go with that one because I love that one.
Spheres of influence. There are 4 different spheres of influence. That's all I'm going to say about that.
4 spheres.
Well, there is the golden rule, which means that if other rules for a certain scenario override the rules referenced, those take precedence. And so we do have scenario-specific rules that introduce new spheres.
It's not a sphere.
Fine, Chris.
All right, John, what do you got? And then I think we'll wrap it up.
I think we're good. Yeah. Thank you, Discord, for still listening to this live tonight. The letter X. This is the last entry in the the glossary section.
Yeah, because alphabetically, the letter X is the last possible entry alphabetically.
Right, but it starts with the word anyway. Sorry, that's actually the least weird thing about this. Unless specified by a card ability or granted player choice, the letter X is always equal to 0. Now, as Matt pointed out, this would have some really fun effects with names of cards because it doesn't say the variable X; it says the letter X. So you have Dwarven A0E. You have Caleb's favorite side quest, E0 Explore Secret Ways, and my personal favorite, one of the Maras, ShadowfaZero.
On a 0 courage. On a 0 acted. Yeah, that's hard to say. That's funny.
Yeah. Obviously not the intent of that, but and this was I looked this one up. This one is worded the same way in
Oh man, that's got to be the episode title, ShadowfaZero.
ShadowfaZero.
There it is. That's funny. Yeah, that was when he talked about that, I was like, that's true. It doesn't say the variable.
The variable X or the cost.
Maybe because it's a capital X.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe it is the capital X, and it's they should have put the ASCII code just to be safe.
Mm-hmm. All right, a final word from our sponsor, guys. Hi, folks. There are just way too many places to name them all. Please make sure to head to Gondor to eat at Denethor's Flame Broil. Try being in charge for the day using Gondor's official title company. Literally anyone can be our steward. You can head down to the farmer's market for Denethor's juicy tomatoes. They're finger-licking good. And then swing by the steward's discount door shop, Gondor. Don't forget door. Okay, got it?
Thing. Yeah.
Yep. Don't forget about hidden gems scattered throughout the wild, such as, Chris and John, I'm counting on you to figure this one out.
Okay.
The Lord of Harrowdale's Fantasy Bookshop, Dune here. You get it?
Is that referencing Dune?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because that's where Harrowdale is in Dune. Okay. Bard the okay, this is great. Bard the Bowman, the hairdresser to the friars, his barber shop, a bear patch. Here's one for you, Chris.
Good.
The Lord of Arda's masculine map shop. Manway's Manway. The Red Arrow archery supplies. The Brown Wizard's shop of horrors. Radagas. The Brown trousers. Tom Bombadil's boot disposal service. If they're yellow, let them mellow. If they're brown, flush them down.
A+.
Thorin Broken Shield's armor repair shop. Bjorn's Bakery. Bjorn's Big Bear Buns. Bard the Showman's traveling theater. And finally, folks, take the kids and grandparents down to Bree on an exciting tour of Bill Ferny's Glue Factory.
Oh. That's warm.
Thank you everybody who put in those. Dave Kirby put in a ton of them. Red Spider, he also put in the Bill Ferny's Glue Factory among some other ones. He actually
So
started
dark.
a new blog. He's calling it, I think, The Road, LOTR at WordPress, and he's cataloging his campaign, his solo campaign,
Awesome.
with 2-player, like he's playing it 2-handed.
Awesome.
So that's going to be an interesting blog to read. Oh, these were great, and yeah, I didn't read them all. There was a lot more. So thank you guys. This was a pretty deep episode, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we didn't get too bogged down there.
But it's kind of nice. Like it shows this game can be played just really light and easy and fun, but then you can really start trying to look at the rules and figuring out how to maximize or minimize
Questioning your life
certain
decisions.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a simple game,
No,
which is why my wife doesn't play it with me.
I attempted it once with my wife, and I handed her a leadership deck that was mono leadership, and just that didn't last long.
You basically just told her what to do for an hour, and then she
doesn't enjoy any kind of game where she has to spend a lot of time reading.
Yeah.
So which is fair. That's not her favorite thing to do. So that's fine.
Well, I love it. I love this game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm very grateful that we've got this document, and it's as it is, it's great, and it's got some places to improve, but
I don't even know if improve is the word. It's maybe a couple spots. It's more of just you can just keep adding to it.
Yeah, I guess adding to it is
an amazing start.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just want to reiterate how grateful I am to all the work that went into that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Put an article out. Be proud of this thing.
Yes.
Like this needs to be shouted out from the hilltops or the mountaintops or the lonely mountaintops. Before we go, Chris, you got anything on your upcoming schedule? Any new decks that you're gonna put out on your channel? Or
I don't know. I'm working on this like one deck that I've been taking through. I've been trying to take through like a lot of different quests. Like it's a well-rounded deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just been trying all the quests and just churning through them. So it still might be a while until I get it out the door. But yeah, it's going to be big when I finally get that done.
Oh, I'm excited now.
Don't undersell it. Chris, it's going to be big.
John, you want to tell your story about your triple steward there?
Oh, yeah.
God.
So I have this deck that it's a variation on Ian from the Great Company and Tales from the Cards, his Sting Like a Bee deck that has basically you end up with Sam becoming the Steward of Gondor so that you can slap a Gondorian shield on him and then he does all the things for you, including defending. So I've had this deck built for a while, and it spent time as my campaign deck, and then I put it back together just for pickup games and all that. So it's been together and has been shuffled a lot. And the other day was sitting down to play, shuffled my cards, and I drew off the top 6, and I drew them one at a time into my hand, and I was like, there was an event that I wanted, and then I got Steward of Gondor. I'm like, oh, that's good. Then the next card was another Steward of Gondor. I was like, well, that's kind of annoying. And then the very next card was the third Steward of Gondor.
That's crazy.
Numbers, stats guys, go out there and do the math for me. Stats guys and gals, go out there and do the math for me. What are the odds of that happening? So it was 100% natural draw, and I just couldn't believe it. And I sent a picture to the podcast crew because I'm like, this will never happen again. And also, mulligan or?
Yeah, that's the tricky part, right? Because you got Steward in your opening hand, so you're like,
yeah.
I'm never going to see it again. Yeah. And then you have to really shuffle.
Triple Steward all the way.
Did you keep the hand?
No, I mulliganed it. And I shuffled real good. And I actually did. I ended up seeing Steward fairly early on with it anyway. So it worked out okay. But yeah, I couldn't, man. That's a deck that you kind of need your other stuff too. And like, I don't want half of my opening hand to be a card that I can't use right yet.
Understood. Well, as for me, I have been playing on Twitch. I played the last 2 weeks, actually. The first week I played with Dave G, which was great because him and I have not played a game in a long time. He actually hasn't had a chance to play in a while. And we won. We beat...
nice.
We beat... what did we play? It was something hard. It wasn't the Crossings of Poros because I played that the next time. Oh, we played Across the Ettenmoors with 2 decks I built. And after I built them, I realized, hey, these might work pretty well together. And we just destroyed the hell out of that crest. It was awesome. It was so much fun. We had 3 enemies being followed, and we weren't revealing enough threat to even cancel it out. Like we had negative threat in the staging area the last 3 rounds, and we were just murdering everything. And great game, a lot of fun. Then the next week I played with Aaron, the chief editor-in-chief, and we played the Crossing of Poros, and we showed up with one of his decks and my Bjorn Uber deck, and quit on turn 2 because we realized there was absolutely no chance. Brought 2 other decks that we thought would have a chance, and we also won, and that was a great game. It was one of those, you had your moments where you're like, oh crap, I don't know if we're going to pull out of this, and then we did, and then in the end we smashed it. But both decks got to do their cool tricks a couple times throughout the game, so I got 2 W's under my belt in 2 weeks on Twitch, so I'm pretty happy about that. I should be twitching next week unless something goes wrong with Big Foam Loaf, and I will be on Twitch next week on Wednesday. Awesome. Waiting on some new material though. I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Ready for the Dale.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, I think we'll end it here. Thank you everybody for listening. I know it was a deep episode, but hopefully it was an enjoyable and enlightening episode of just how much fun this game can actually be. Until next time, bye-bye.
Can't get enough of Cardboard of the Rings? Then check us out online at cardboardoftherings.com. There you can find links to all of our social media platforms, including Discord, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. If you're interested in supporting us, you can at patreon.com/cardboardoftherings. Any amount helps, and it all goes back to the show and the community to make it even better than it already is. Thanks for listening.
All right, here we go. God, nope, not ready. Sorry, not ready. Not ready.
And we have outro.